All right, welcome back. I can see why people are upset about the stock market, right? $6.5 trillion wiped off balance sheets in the last few days. Well, that's nothing to really sneeze at in America. But let's take a quick look at how we got here, though. That's what I want to review, right? I'll say this. The path that we were on was 100% unsustainable. But we can't keep doing what we were doing. We're broke and getting more broke. We're paper-overing all of our ills with government spending. And that can only last so long when you're almost $37 trillion in debt. So those that want to go back to the way things were with higher stock prices and more government spending have got their head in the sand. This issue is going to come our way whether we liked it or not. We can't just continue down the path of ignoring everything. So what should we do now, right? That's my question. Only one guy had a plan. He got elected. So let's let him execute it and see. It's a big risk. It might not work, but what if it does? I say he deserves a chance. Let's see what our next guest has to say about this. Please welcome to the show, Rebecca Walser from Walser Wealth Management down in Tampa, Florida. Rebecca, I just say this. Not a lot of other people came to that table with a plan. He got elected. I think we just owe it to him to have a shot at it, because the alternative, and even Scott Bessent said this, is 100% unsustainable, because at some point in time, we'd be selling so many bonds, somebody else would own this country.
Well, you're not wrong. And that's what the American people don't understand. This reminds me of like going to a technical school, but financing a debt loan that's the equivalent of an Ivy League, and getting out and getting a job as a bus driver, and realizing you're never, ever, ever going to be able to pay off your student loan. This is the equivalent of where our country is. We have used our status as as the world's reserve currency. My mistake, the world's reserve currency since Bretton Woods 1944. Really, I would argue back to 1917 and World War I. We started using debt and leverage back then, and people started borrowing from us back then. And so I think we've had years and years, Scott, of enjoying the leverage that we can export our inflation to other countries that must buy the greenback for the petrodollar and all the things that we've done. And it's just not there anymore. The blockchain technology and cryptocurrency really changed fiat currency. It will be written, mark my words, when we go back and we read all of the research papers and all the white papers and all of the books that are going to be written about this, hundreds and hundreds of books will be written about the end of fiat currency. And really the ending factor, I believe, is going to be transparent blockchain, where you can see everything, because the way fiat works is by fakeness, right? It is a fractional reserve system by design. And when you start to open that up to transparency and people really see how much wealth we really don't have, to your point, 37 trillion almost in debt, we are at the point now of a debt bubble. In other words, we are getting so much interest due every 100 days that in order to finance the interest that we have to pay, we have to take out more interest. We have to finance more debt. In other words, leveraging debt immediately to pay debt is a self-fulfilling collapse of a prophecy, and it's not sustainable. Thank God we do have Trump in office during this time frame, because we're going to see now exponentially fast developments globally on currencies, on blockchain. You've got a lot of central banks that are moving to central bank digital currencies, what we call CBDCs. And as central banks get away from gold and tier one, Basel III kind of requirements and move to crypto, you're going to see a very, very fast demise of the dollar and fiat currency. And that's what Americans need to understand. This is why we need to be thankful that Trump, as a builder who has made things, who has created things, will be able to hopefully re-engineer our currency situation, our status as this happens. I can't say it's going to happen during his term, Scott, in 4 years, but I also can't say that it's not happening so exponentially fast that I could see it happening during this term that he's in office right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's going to take time, because we've gone so far down that road, and people don't, I talked about this last week. We're going to add $2 trillion to the debt, generally speaking, this year, whether we like it or not, just because of our budget deficit on an annual basis. We take in $5 trillion in tax money and we spend $7 trillion. You can't do that forever. So we're going to add that to our debt. So we're going to get close to $40 trillion in debt by the end of this year. And that's what I say. We can't do this forever. We have to stop it. So regardless of whether it's Trump or not, this question was going to be in our lap at some point in time. And then we were going to have to do something about it. So, all right, he pulled off the Band-Aid. Yeah, there's a few pieces of hair and a little bit of blood on it. Maybe a lot of folks didn't expect that to be the case, but at least we have to try to go down a different avenue. And look what he's done, selling the gold card for, whatever it is, $5 million or whatever, getting all these companies like Apple to commit $500 billion in infrastructure and building and new jobs. I mean, this is what you're going to have to do because we can't. So what drives me crazy is the people that get angry, they want to have a fake stock market with no, tumultuous times and continue to cover over our ills with the debt. It doesn't make sense to me.
We've already passed the 200-year mark for our democracy that usually self-implodes because the people that can, the minority can support, vote themselves for free programs, and that will usually tip over the people in the minority that actually pay the taxes. So you're absolutely right. But the fact is, Scott, is if you look at the alternative, if you look at, what the globalists sort of want, the World Economic Forum, obviously I've talked about them incessantly on your program, they wanted the Great Reset. The Great Reset is really the idea that we will never own anything again, that you will lease your car, you will lease your house. There'll be self-driving cars that are autonomous in all of the urban areas. You won't be able to drive a car into them. Like the alternative to what Trump is going to try to re-engineer with our world here is an alternative to the Great Reset, the resetting of all things that we know. We're not going to have home ownership, but you're going to basically lease your house forever. Right. You'll never build any assets. It's the subscription model for everything. And that's what everyone else wants us to go to. So the fact that we have Trump in there to try to preserve the sanity and the sanctity of the U.S. dollar is way better than any alternative we could have had. This is a period of change, and it is disruptive. Thank God the stock market has whipsawed back to the positive today, but this is a period of disruption, and I think that people need to just be prepared for it. It's going to be a little bit disruptive. I
totally agree. And, for those globalists that wanted that great reset, instead they got Donald Trump, and he's the great regret. Right? They're going to be upset about it. All right. Great having you on. Thank you very much, Rebecca. Rebecca Walser. Walser Wealth Management coming to us from Tampa, Florida.